The snowstorm didn't just freeze the roads, it froze time itself. In the middle of that blinding white silence, two small figures stood trembling, unnoticed by a world rushing past. Cars slowed, then sped away. No one stopped. No one cared. Until one man did. A billionaire? Powerful and respected. But even he wasn't prepared for what he was about to witness, because what he saw wasn't just poverty, it was something far more disturbing. Something that would force him to question everything he believed about fairness. Humanity and race. Why did no one else stop? And what truth was hidden behind those freezing eyes? Ethan Carter had built a life most people could only imagine. From nothing to unimaginable wealth. He was known for his sharp instincts, luxury lifestyle, and the kind of success that made headlines. His days were structured and predictable. Meetings, investments, high-profile events. The world saw him as a man in control, someone untouched by struggle. But that night, everything felt different. The storm outside was unlike anything the city had seen in years, turning the streets into a frozen maze. As his car moved slowly through the blizzard, something unusual caught his attention. Two small figures standing alone, barely visible through the snow. At first, it didn't make sense. Children shouldn't be out there. Not in that cold, not in that storm. And yet, they were. Still. Waiting. As if the world had already decided to leave them behind. Ethan had seen hardship before, but something about this moment felt wrong. Deeper than poverty, colder than the storm itself. Why were they out there alone? And why had everyone else already chosen to look away? Ethan's car came to a slow stop, the engine humming against the howling wind. For a moment, he just stared through the windshield, unsure if what he was seeing was even real. The storm blurred everything, but not enough to hide the truth. Two children, thin, shivering, their clothes, barely shielding them from the freezing cold. Something about it didn't sit right. He stepped out, the cold hitting him like a wall. Each step toward them felt heavier, as if the storm itself was trying to push him back. The children didn't move. They didn't run. They just stood there, silent, watching. And then he noticed it. People had passed by. Fresh tire tracks in the snow, faint footprints leading away. Someone had seen them, maybe many had, but no one had stopped. Why? As he got closer, the answer began to reveal itself, not in words, but in the way the world had treated them. Their faces carried more than fear. They carried rejection. The kind that doesn't come from a single moment, but from being ignored again and again. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He had grown up believing that success erased barriers, that money created distance from pain like this. But standing there now, he realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't just about being poor. This was about being unseen, left behind in plain sight. A car approached from behind, its headlights cutting through the snow. It slowed down, just like others must have. For a second, it seemed like someone else might finally stop. But then, just as quickly, it sped off. The children didn't even react. That was the part that hit hardest. They weren't surprised anymore. Ethan's chest tightened as the realization sank in. This wasn't the first time they had been left out here. Not the first time the world had chosen convenience over compassion. And in that moment, the storm felt like more than weather. It felt like a reflection of something colder, something deeper. He looked around, as if searching for an explanation that didn't exist. This was a city full of people, full of resources, full of opportunity. And yet somehow, these two children had been reduced to nothing more than a passing glance, invisible. But why them? What had made everyone else keep driving? And what truth was Ethan about to uncover that would change everything? The wind howled louder, as if the storm itself was warning him to stop. But Ethan didn't. He moved closer, kneeling in the snow, finally seeing the children clearly. Their faces were pale, their lips trembling, their eyes empty in a way no child should ever be. And then he saw it. A small cardboard sign half buried in the snow. Shaking, he pulled it free. The words were barely visible, smeared by melting ice, but still clear enough to hit like a punch to the chest. They weren't just asking for help. They had been turned away. Again, and again, and again. Ethan's mind raced. How many doors had closed on them that night? How many people had looked at these children, freezing, desperate, and decided they weren't worth stopping for? A distant siren cut through the storm, growing louder. Red and blue lights flickered in the distance, approaching fast. Relief flickered for a split second. Help was coming. But as the vehicle stopped, something felt off. The attention didn't go to the children. It went to Ethan. The questions came quickly, sharp, suspicious. Eyes scanned him, judging him, not for what he was doing, but for who he was. The moment twisted into something darker. The urgency for the children faded into the background, replaced by doubt, tension, assumption. Ethan stood there, stunned. In that freezing moment, it became painfully clear. This wasn't just about two children, abandoned in a storm. This was about something far deeper, something that decided who gets help and who gets questioned. And as the cold tightened around them, one question echoed louder than the storm itself. Would anyone finally see the truth before it was too late? The storm didn't stop that night, but something else did. Ethan refused to move. Not when the attention shifted. Not when doubt filled the air. He stepped forward, placing himself between the children and a world that had already failed them too many times. And for the first time that night, the focus returned where it always should have been. Help finally came. The children were taken to safety, wrapped in warmth they hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. Their shaking slowed. Their silence, though, remained, a quiet reminder of everything they had endured before anyone chose to care. But Ethan didn't walk away unchanged. What he witnessed that night stayed with him. Not just the image of two children in the snow, but the reality behind it. The way people had looked, and then looked away. The way help had hesitated. The way assumptions had spoken louder than compassion. In the days that followed, he began to act, not out of charity, but out of responsibility. Because he understood now, this wasn't an isolated moment. It was a pattern, a reflection of a system where some are seen instantly, and others have to suffer just to be noticed. And those children? They survived. But survival should never be the goal for any child. The truth is, storms like that don't only exist in the weather. They exist in silence, in indifference, in the moments where doing nothing feels easier than stepping in. So the question remains, how many more people will be left out in the cold before someone finally decides to stop?